everyone, it's Julia. Today I have a project that I wanted to share with you that combines two of my favorite things, vintage linens and vintage sewing patterns. We're going to be making these journals, and they're filled with all sorts of yummy papers. More about that in a little bit. For those of you who are new to my channel, I have a summer shop that's in with the flea market, and so I have the opportunity to shop before I open my store, and I always look for vintage linens and some old patterns. I love the graphics on the old patterns, and I wanted to say too that a lot of vendors collect these for me because they know I look for them. I do not use anything that's in like perfect condition at all. In fact, I like if they're stained, the linens, because I cut them up and then I don't feel guilty about cutting them up. And same with the patterns. Most of the patterns that I use do not have the tissue papers inside. The vendors that save them for me use those tissue for wrapping their purchases or their gifts that they sell. And so I wanted just to do that little comment because I do not use like pristine things. I cut them up, I alter them, I do all sorts of fun things. So I hope you join me today where I'm going to be showing you how I make these journals using two of my favorite things, the vintage patterns and vintage linens. Here's an example of some of the linens. I just love vintage linens. I love the edgings that they use and all the beautiful stitching. This one actually was from a subscriber. She sent it to me. I am over the moon on this. It's a vintage quilt block. I'm gonna hoard this for a long time, and then I'm gonna make something special for myself out of it. I love it. But as you can see, like this one has a stain on it. Look at this. Look how sweet that is. And then this one actually, tons and tons of work into it, but it has a huge stain on it. But again, I don't care. Like I said, a lot of people either gift these to me or they collect them for me and they give me a good price on them. Some of them, especially the damaged ones. But as you can see, this is going to add a lot of bulk to my journals. And some of them, like particularly this one, I just don't want to use. And what I do is I scan these and I print them off onto paper. And I have made a collection of PDFs of all my vintage linens, and they're available in my Etsy shop. And so I'll put that link down below. In the PDF, there's a variety of different linens. I believe there's 8 different linens. And you can print them off on many different types of paper. This is a tea-dyed paper. This is just an old lined paper, school paper. Love it on that. And I also have transparent ones. So I did the 8 linens, but then I also manipulated the image so they're more transparent. And this is a very transparent one. And this is nice just to add a background on your page so you can still do all your journaling or whatever you want on them. So that is also included in the kit. And I also made some PDF just collage sheets. And these are great for tags and pockets, different things that you can either print on cardstock or just copy paper and cut them out and then use them throughout your journals. So that link is down below if anybody's interested in adding some vintage linen looking things to your journals. And here's an example of what some of those PDFs or what some of those printed linens look on pages. This is one of the transparent ones. Love adding just little pieces of tatting or lace to it. Here's a pocket made out of one of them and a tag. So there's just many things that you can do. Here's another little tuck spot. I love the doily printed just on a piece of and it just adds such a nice background. Another pocket and tags. And I absolutely love the one in the center where you can just open it up and just really enjoy those vintage looking papers. Now onto the journal itself. The covers are made out of two different patterns. There's one on the front and one on the back. And I'm going to show you how I join these. This is just joined with a piece of fabric. This is actually a piece of trimmed fabric. Any lace, anything would work for that. I do run that is kind of hard to see, but I do run that trim both on the outside and on the inside. And again, we'll go through one and I'll show you that. As I mentioned before in the introduction, the tissue papers aren't included with these patterns. Those had already been removed when I got them. But I do have some folded instructions that I keep in the little pocket just to give it some structure. Now this is not always the same instructions as what was on the original cover. I get them when they're all messed up, and so I just include one though because it fits great inside the pocket. It gives it the structure needed, and then you have a pocket that you can put whatever you want in. And also this is fun just to collage on, and you can use this as a tear sheet and tear pieces of it and include it on your journal. So it has a lot of uses. But that little instruction is inside that envelope. Look at this. Isn't this just the greatest? It's 7-day wardrobe. It's a Simplicity. The original price was 65 cents. Here's the two pattern envelopes that I have chosen to work with today. Now notice how some of these are written on. I love that. This is somebody who said add inch through the hips, which just kind of makes me laugh because, you know, we have those problems. And I take a look at them first of all. This one has a little bit of a tear right here, and this one has a little bit of a tear right here. I can fix those with a colorful piece of washi tape. This one has a real vintage, almost a vintage looking print on it. Or what I'll do is like on this one's on this side and this one's on this side. And so I'm gonna use, this is my front cover, this is my back cover. And the piece of trim or fabric that I'm gonna sew will reinforce that. And so I'm not gonna be concerned with that. This is going to be going down, just right down, connecting the two, and it will be zigzagged on, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. But I did remove the instruction sheets. These are the things that are going to go inside for structure. I don't want to sew through those, so I remove them at this point. But I flip these upside down, and I do want to space that a little bit so that they're not right next to each other. And I'm going to stitch this one on one side and one on the other side. And I'm going to be doing a zigzag. I've opened up the envelope flap, and I'm going to be going right up to the edge of this and all the way down. I've got the trim sewn to join the two patterns together. I have cut this longer than I needed, so I'm going to trim this, and this is the piece that's going to be going on the other side. Now this is a piece of trim that I've had in my stash forever. It's about an inch wide. You can use fabric, you can use ribbon, you can use lace, whatever you want to use for this. And you're just going to stitch it straight down. You want it about, this is like an inch wide, and you're going to want it the length of your patterns twice, because you want it on the front and you're going to want it on the back of this. Two, I wanted to mention and forgot to mention this, is I have two Simplicity patterns that I'm working with here, so that they're the same width, and the Butterick patterns are also the same width as the Simplicity. It's the McCall's patterns that are a bit wider. And so if you're going to use McCall's patterns, use both front and the back McCall so that they're the same width and the same size journal covers. My next step is taking it back to the sewing machine, and I'm going to zigzag both sides all the way through my pattern envelopes. I've got both sides sewn. I'm just going to do a little bit of trimming here. And then putting my instruction sheets back into the envelopes. The journal cover is done, and I do think this is one of the easiest journals that I make. It just goes together so quickly, and they're just, I love the graphics. They're just so cool. For the pages, I print off a bunch of my linens, printables. I add the tea dyed. This is a wonderful page out of the McCall's Needleworks and Craft. Again, I think I picked this up at the flea market, and this is a summer of 1960 edition. It has just great ads and just different things. A lot of it's on knitting, but it's fun to read and fun to look at. This is a very soft, transparent, one of the printables. This one's printed on the regular lined paper. Another piece of that Needlework magazine. I do like to add a printed paper that I can use. This is a 12 by 12 folded, so I can use it as a folder. That's included. Again, some more of the vintage linens. I do a lot of blank papers, so you can create in them as well. And then in the center, I like to open up one of those vintage printables. So this is one signature journal. To get it in the little book, I just make sure that everything is lined up and fits in there. You may have to trim the edges. One thing I like about this particular size is those folded papers fit really pretty good in there without much trimming. Get everything pushed up into that corner or that crease. And then I like to use the Wonder Clips to hold this into place. And I use several of the Wonder Clips. I have my insert clipped in place. I'm going to put little marks where I want my holes to be. This is going to be stitched in. I like to add one right to the middle, approximately a ½ an inch down from the top, a ½ an inch in from the bottom, and then I space between the two of those midway. So I'll have a total of 5 holes. My favorite way of getting those holes is to use my crocodile. But if you don't have a crocodile, you can also use an awl or some kind of pokey tool and poke through those little dots. But like I said, I'm going to be using my crocodile. I use the smallest hole, which is the 1/8 inch. You can see the holes on the inside. I do a very easy binding. I take about a yard of cording. This is similar to a baker's twine. And a needle that has a big eye. I'm starting from the center in the middle hole. And hold that. Then go to the next hole. I kind of pull it tight as I go. Then I skip the middle hole and go to the 4th hole. Go through the bottom, back through the 4th hole. And then back in through the center. This time I want to go on the opposite side of the middle cord. So I have my 2 strands, and then I just tie a knot with that cord in the center. And it's as easy as that. I wanted to share with you some of the details that I like to add. Because this is a sewing themed, I love adding the trim. I also like to add little pieces of fabric, another little piece of trim. This is just a paper doily. I've stitched that on. Another thing I like to add to these are just some lace or vintage trim along the side. And to do that, you could stitch that, but I really like using the fabric tack glue because it's very strong glue and it's easy to do. Sometimes I like to do some decorating after I've completed my book, and the fabric tack glue is wonderful for that. Another thing I like in it, what I've included with these journals, is one of my handmade little paper clips, and this has a yo-yo on the top of it. I've printed out some of the tags on a heavier cardstock. Another thing I've added is a bulb pin. These are so fun because you can stick buttons and all sorts of little beads or whatever you want on them, and they're just a nice little dangle. And then I just inserted that and hung it right off that piece of lace. Or you could put fabric tabs on them. There's just so many ideas that you can do with these. I made several of these, and will have them in my Etsy shop, and I'll link that also down below for you if anybody's interested. But this was another one I had to share with you. I had this pattern when I was in, must have been 8th grade. Sometimes you can find the dates on these, and this is, I believe, yeah, this is a 1972, so I would have been 7th, 8th grade. But I remember this outfit, and boy, let me tell you, I was the bomb. But again, it just brings back so many fun memories, and yeah, it's just fun. So check them out on my Etsy store. There'll be a description on them too, so you can see exactly how many pages I use and all that good stuff. But I also wanted to share, I will be including a free gift. I had these packs of fiber at my summer shop, and I had some extra ones, and so I'm going to include a pack of fiber while quantities last in the purchase of one of my journals. So thank you so much, everybody, and thanks for joining me. Hope you have a chance to create. Bye for now.